morning. I'd like to introduce you to a friend and colleague of mine from New Zealand. His name is Mike Hutcheson. His first book was called A Mate of Mine Reckons This is a #1 bestseller. Mike Hutcheson was my mentor back in 2001 when I launched Joyology, and has been a mentor, colleague, co-presenter and friend over the last 17 years. He's probably the most genial man that I know, and I've always admired his intelligence, his creativity, and his capacity for humour. Say no more. There'll be 2 or 3 episodes. This was a very long interview, so I've broken it up into several parts. Over to you, and hope you enjoy. What are your thoughts about humour intelligence?
Well, it's interesting. I've done a bit of work on this, certainly in advertising, because I think that humour is a wonderful accelerant to getting ideas across. It's much easier to hook someone like a fish rock if you coat it with sugar. So a little bit of humour around sometimes an unpalatable fact. I mean, court jesters in the days of kings knew that. You know, they were there to take the piss out of the king and make sure that he, stayed normal. So I think that it's crucial that we understand the place of humour in getting through our lives, because again, it goes back to the endorphins we release when we laugh. There are some strong physiological reasons to enjoy life. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel good, and it's contagious, and it transmits itself. And if you come into life as a little bit of a joy gem, you make others' lives better as well. And I'm sure you've got friends I know. They just walk into the room and say hello, and everyone falls about laughing. There's something. There's something. You know that something good's going to happen. And have a sense of expectation. Those kind of people walk into the room, and then there's a nicer anticipation of, it's like, when your pet dog or cat sees you, all of a sudden they perk up. What's that old joke? If you want to know who loves you most, your wife or your dog, lock them in the car boot for a week and then open it up and see who's most pleased to see you. And I think, and that sense of anticipation when someone funny walks into the room, and you see it in some people, there's that heightened sense of expectation. You have a pleasurable experience when someone walks on stage or walks into the room, or you see them on TV.
I don't know if you've met or seen him, but I've just recently interviewed Anthony Aykroyd, and he has in the past done a lot of impersonation work, and there's one particular clip where he's performing, and he comes to the stage, and he's about to step into this persona that he's taking off, and he just looks to the left and looks to the right. Nothing has been said, and the audience just bursts into peals of laughter.
I particularly like black humour and irony, and I think that's probably also quite a not uniquely Antipodean. I think the Irish have it as well, the British to some extent, Americans not so. There's a wonderful sense of irony and piss taking in this part of the world. A friend of mine bought a property up north. This guy's a contractor. He and his cousin were in the States, in San Diego, and they're in a bar, and I was all, where do you guys come from? I said, we come from New Zealand. Oh, New Zealand, I love it. God, yeah, Peter Jackson, The Hobbit. And Shane said, don't you talk to me about hobbits. Since that bloody movie, they've been protected. We used to shoot them. There's a delicious sort of black irony about those, and that's a kind of it's an Antipodean thing. I remember the first time I went to New York, years ago now. I was out with my sister and brother-in-law, and my sister Diana said to Kerry, my brother-in-law, I said, Mick's off to New York next week. And Kerry quizzed her face and said, oh yeah, New York. Said, who's got the pub there now? It wouldn't make sense to an American. It would only make sense to a Kiwi or an Aussie. And it's just that sort of self-deprecating, you don't want to be too big for your boots around this part of the world.
Yes.
And it's a nice element of social control, and I like I like the notion of irony and just taking the piss. You know, that's one thing we do well. The Irish do it well too. I was recently in Ireland and heard this lovely story. A friend of mine were talking about going to Blarney Castle. He said, "Oh, be careful." He said, "It's not very well signed." Well, it is actually quite well signed. But when he was there, it wasn't well signposted. He got lost. And he saw a farmer, an old bloke walking along the road, little cloth cap, and he stopped the car and wound the window and said, "Excuse me, do you know the way to Blarney Castle?" And then the Irish looked at him and said, "Yes, I do," and carried on walking. You've got to ask the right question.
Yes.
And Sean Fitzpatrick, when he was the All Blacks rugby captain, he'd always admired Willie John McBride. He never played against him, but Willie John, who was the captain of Ireland, had retired before Sean ever played him, but he wanted to pay homage to the great guy. So he hired a rental car when he was there in Dublin and drove down to, I think it was near Wexford, wherever it was that Willie John lived. Drove into the village and thinking, well, I'll start at the nearest pub. So went to the pub and he said, "Look, you know, it was a bit strange." He said, "But does Willie John McBride drink here?" And I said, "Oh, yes, he does." He said, "But it's not here today." He said, "But go down the road, first on the left, over the bridge, and the first house on the right, as you go over the bridge, that's Willie's house. So you didn't knock on the door, I'm sure you'll be made welcome." So Sean got in the car and drove back and knocked on the door of this house. A woman answered the door, and Sean said, "Is this where Willie John McBride lives?" And we looked at him for a couple of seconds and said, "Bring him in."
Oh.
I mean, yeah, you had to be one of us to get that one. I love that contextual stuff, and it's interesting when we were doing this exercise at Saatchi's about intuitive versus non-intuitive thinkers and the importance of humour. One of the things that Rebecca Webster was the psychologist who we got engaged to do this work. You've got to realise that all creative people are intelligent, but not all intelligent people are creative. Mm. And the same goes with humour. Just because you're clever doesn't mean to say you're funny. You know? And being funny isn't about being able to tell jokes. Some people, you know, are really bad at it, you know, because they think that it's all about the joke, but it's actually all about the presentation. It's all about, that was what you touched on before. It's like the guy who comes on stage and looks left and right. You know? It's timing. You know? You can do it with an eyebrow, you know? Yeah. Or something silly like you can walk on stage and just pretend to trip. You know? That'll get people laughing because I've really tried to think about it long and hard about, you know, what is it that makes people laugh. I think it's incongruity. It's the unexpected. You know? Mm. Causes almost a nervous reaction, which comes out as ha ha ha, you know, because it takes us by surprise, and that's the way we humans deal with it. I'd love to see what the neural synapses do in order to make us go there.
Yeah. And there's something about nervous laughter too. Some people laugh in that funny kind of way when they're nervous, and it's, you know, probably not seen as appropriate, but they're not really laughing. It's just a nervous thing. Yeah. So, and that's probably the expression. You know, that's the energy being released.
Yeah, I wonder if it is. Yeah, there's something about that expulsion of air, which is the opposite of the big deep breath, probably. The expulsion of the big deep breath.
As I was thinking about this interview and what I would ask, I was thinking back to when I ran the Humour Awards, which is nearly 10 years ago now. And there was Tony Falkenstein from Just Water, Dr. Barbara Plester, and yourself, who supported me as a board of humour directors for the Humour in Business Awards. And I remember the first year ringing around businesses and inviting them to participate. And there was way more than one who would have replied with something like, "Look, Pat, I'm sure you're a really nice lady, but this is a serious business that we have here. We actually have fun Friday after work." And it kind of reinforced for me the importance of what I was doing. It was like, well, this is a bit of a hard road pulling this together, but I really want to do it because I really want to waken people up to, you know, it doesn't have to become a joke factory at work. It's about that banter and the camaraderie that comes from that, and getting people to understand each other. You were talking about the Myers-Briggs, and getting that deeper level, and then you get great repartee and great ideas can come from that.
A friend of mine was creative director of an agency in Sydney for a number of years, and they did an exercise and took a map of the city and put a pin in the map to indicate where good ideas had been conceived. And these were ideas that got turned into ads. It wasn't just the random, you know, naval pickings of some wacko. And over a period of about 5 years, there's something like 300 pins in the map. Only 8% happen in the office. Most of them happen either, a lot of them happen in the Italian restaurant up the road. But others happen in the shower, you know, to your point, warmer on the back of your head, releases serotonin, makes you feel good, on the beach in Hawaii, on the freeway, because it's that alpha, beta, theta, delta brainwave pattern. Beta brainwaves is when you're busy. That's the normal, you know, operational mode. You've got to sit down and have an interview. Have I got everything right? Have I turned everything on? And you're in thinking mode, 13 plus cycles per second in your brainwave. But it's an alpha and theta mode, you know, 8 to 13 or 5 to 8 cycles per second, or 3 to 8 cycles per second, where the best creativity happens, the best humour happens. And we're probably in alpha mode now. We're relaxed, but alert, just chatting away. And our interaction, our conversation will lead us to other thoughts, you know, or in theta mode is when you're drowsy, coming out of sleep. And most of the great discoveries in the world happen in alpha and theta mode. Nothing in beta mode. That's delta mode. Delta mode, you're almost dead. You know, some Indian yogis can achieve that state, but you know, your brain is almost asleep. But so it's alpha and theta you're looking for.
Steven Spielberg says that when all his major inspiration comes when he gets out on the highway or country road and he just goes. There's no music or anything, just the passing parade of all these images, and ideas just come to him.
Yep, that's it. I mean, and that to me is that it's almost a meditative state when you're on autopilot in the car, and you could drive for 2 hours. And we've got a property up north. It's an hour and a half drive from Auckland. But I know the road like the back of my hand now, and I'm almost on autopilot and driving up there. And it's actually a really good time for me. The only thing that annoys me is, you know, people in small cars who don't go fast. That's why my nuclear vaporizer. But apart from that, it's just the best time for reflection and thinking.
Yes. I don't know if you remember, but the first year of the Humour Awards, it was Canyon Swing from Queenstown who won. Do you remember their entry? Yeah. And their video submission showed the vehicle, the minibus coming into town to pick up the people, and the driver got out of the vehicle and flicked open his blind man's cane and moved his way towards the people waiting, and he led them back to the bus. And as they got on, you couldn't help but notice the blind driver's manual on the console, and he executed this, 32-point turn getting out of the car park with the stick out the window. And then when they got to the destination, every encounter point along the way was all couched in humour, and including when you got right to the end and they put the belt on and tested it, and were just saying they were testing it, but it was actually the real thing and you were gone. So people would go there and knew that was going to happen in some form. But what I loved about their whole operation was they couched the whole process in humour and had a 100% safety record.
Yes.
And for me, that's just incredible. That's just amazing. There's a level of automatic pilot for their skill base for each individual. But there's also, you can't just orchestrate humour. You have to make that work, you've got to be present. So that's an incredible marriage, I think, of humour and safety and its expression, and a very successful business. And their biggest investment is in developing each individual on their team. They have a huge output to enable them to be their best. It's wonderful.
Yeah, well, just because you're enjoying yourself doesn't mean to say you're reckless. You know, you can be to be amusing. You can be caring, and it's that. Just because you're being funny doesn't mean to say you don't care. And I think that's what a lot of more serious people mistake it for. And one of the things that I do now, whenever I'm doing a presentation, in order to, because I'm so nervous, I think, well, to break the ice, I'll crack a joke. And my normal entry is, look, I want to thank the people who've invited me here, because often it's after dinner speech or drinks or whatever. I said, I'm actually a recovering anorexic, and I was promised that I can eat as much and drink as much as I like after my giving my speech, and that's part of my therapy. So I mean that always. Well, the other one I use sometimes, in particularly if there's no PowerPoint or no support, I said, I just want you to know I haven't got AIDS, and so that you know, they kind of get it if they know that I haven't got any visual aids. But just again, just to take them by surprise, and I think that, and if it's self-deprecating, it's also disarming.
Yes.
And that disarming nature, I always think there's a reciprocal of trust, Pat. Yeah, and this again transmits itself through the ether, through subatomic particles. I am absolutely sure. There's a reciprocal of trust. If you trust other people, they'll trust you.
Yeah.
And that can be demonstrated by self-deprecating humor, or a bit of a joke, or revealing something embarrassing about yourself. I'll often start with the stuttering joke. You know, I just, look, I do apologise. I'm here. My therapist has said to me I should actually speak as often as I can in public to get over my speech impediment. I'm sure you've probably heard of the joke about the young guy who got a job as a Bible salesman, had a terrible stutter, and they gave him. He was the son of a man of the cloth. And the British and Foreign Bible Society took pity on him and said, look, we'd like to give you, he couldn't find a job. He was so afflicted that he just couldn't get a job. As they took pity on him, gave him a job selling Bibles door to door. And lo and behold, he turned out to be the world champion Bible salesman. Like he was in West Auckland. I mean, they're a godless lot. And he was selling Bibles like you wouldn't believe. And the head of the British and Foreign Bible Society in London heard about this young man. He was selling hundreds of these things. He thought, he better come out to New Zealand and interview him and find out what his magic secret was. So he flew out and sat down with this young man and said, look, young gentleman, I'm terribly impressed with what you're doing. I mean, you're an outstanding salesman. I mean, and we'd like to understand, you know, what your secret is, because at first we thought you had your speech affliction, that you might not be very good, but you're the son of a man of the cloth, and we thought we would sort of spread out and our of your reflection and give you the job, and you've actually turned out to be not only good but very good and the best in the world. And perhaps you can explain to us what it is that you do, so we can perhaps bottle it and sell it to the rest of the thing. And, well, it's pretty simple, really. I go to the door and knock and ask if I can speak to the head of the house. When they come, I ask if they'd like to buy a Bible, or shall I read it to them?
That reminds me, I worked in a very toxic environment once for 12 months, and when I left, they had a farewell party for me and none of the staff came. It's the first time I've ever had that experience. Anyway, passage of time, and I went back. I was selling tickets for something, some charitable function, and got permission from the owner to go around and see the staff, and I said to them, would you like to buy a ticket? Would you prefer that I came back and worked here?
That's brilliant.
So they all bought tickets. But you're talking about trust, and creating that, and we had you speak at the National Speakers Association at my invitation, maybe 2001, 2002, somewhere around that time. And as a surprise, we organised Wade Jackson and the Improv Bandits. And as you were being introduced, they did this improvised routine in a spotlight demonstrating aspects of your life story. I particularly remember at one point they were talking about your sailing, and the light had come on and there they were, being battered by the waves. And, you weren't aware that we were going to do that. So we need a certain trust that it will be okay, but also a level of courage that it'll be okay even if it's not. What are your thoughts on improv?
Yeah. I love improv, I love what Wayne. In fact, I'm on his. He's got a little charitable trust he's just set up, which I'm on. So I don't see as much of him as I'd like. I'm in the busiest phase of my life now. I've got so little bandwidth for anything else I don't know. But I love improv, and I just love the scope behind it. People have to feel safe in it. To work, people have to know what they're going to expect and know they could be called upon, and therefore be part of it. Allow themselves to be part of it, because exactly what you said, it is quite freeing to be involved and allow yourself to be involved and be in the moment. I'm terrible at not being in the moment. I'm always on my phone. I'm always thinking, because I'm director of a number of different companies, got a number of different projects going on, and this adjunct professorship they've given me now is just another. I love it, but it's another 10 gigs of bandwidth that uses up every day. And you've actually just triggered off in my mind again. I should actually catch up with Wayne again shortly and be part of. I missed out last week, the week before last. They had the celebration again, and I just couldn't make it. I was just too bloody busy. But you reminded me I should actually just go and join them and take part in it again and loosen myself up, because you're quite right. You've got to let your synapses connect in a different way. And one of the things that I teach now with Catherine Newton is getting people to look at the world differently. And one of the things that I did learn when I was at art school, we were taught in perspective drawing. And at first, when you taught vanishing points and perspective drawing, you use a ruler, so you understand what a vanishing point is and how to draw in perspective. And it's all very well, you've got a drawing board and a ruler, but if you're out in the field with an easel or a sketch pad, you do it freehand by eye, and you'll make a mistake. And you will only see your mistake if you turn your painting upside down, which is not at all possible, or look at it in the mirror, or in our case, in the art room, to look at it upside down between our legs. And when I was supple enough and young enough to actually bend over and look at anything between my legs, it was a lovely metaphor for problem solving. How do I look at this thing in a different way? How do I put this problem upside down? How do I look at the world in a different way? And now when I'm doing creative training or innovation training with a group, I'll say, look, I'll teach you to draw. And you'll ask a group of 20, 25 people, how many people here think they're creative or play, and there'll be two little tentative hands put up. And that's bullshit. You're all creative. Being a human being is essentially creative. You don't have to be Michelangelo. You could be an architect, or you could be a builder. Being a builder and putting brick by brick is just as important as drawing the house in the first place. Making toast and jam is creative. It's not very creative, but it is creative. So just think about it. And I'll say, look, I want you all to draw a face. Who knows how to draw a face? And no one will say yes. I said, well, okay, can you draw an egg? Do you all know what an egg looks like? So I said, so they draw the egg, and the pretty good eggs coming up. I said, now draw a line down the middle and one halfway across the egg up the top. And they'll do that. I said, now that line across the horizontal line is where your eyes are, because you don't know it, but your eyes are actually halfway down your head. If you take that distance, it's the same as that distance. And divide it up, and then all of a sudden they look at the world differently. And I'll start talking to them about the Fibonacci series, and why things are beautiful and how we're hardwired to recognize things that are the golden ratio or in part of the Fibonacci series. And all of a sudden I said, go home and look at your kids and see if Fibonacci might have skipped them, because there'll be some people, whatever it is, and look at the world in a different way. And just you say, drive to work differently. Put your watch in the other hand. Try drawing with the left hand. All those things to break that mental memory, the way you've always done things. Because if you keep on doing the same thing, you'll keep on getting the same results. So yeah, that's the essence of it. You did right. Humor, enjoy it, laugh about it.
Yes, we're coming to a close. Before we do, tell the viewers, please, about your periodic table of innovation, which is sitting there behind you.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm now an Adjunct Professor of Innovation at the Auckland University of Technology. And one of the things I've learned over the years, I've been involved in 9 startups. And I've, as I say to a lot of people, that I've launched a number of ships. Some have come home laden with treasure, and others have sunk without trace. My first 2 wives have got most of the treasure, but apart from that, I've struck it lucky with my 3rd wife, and we're starting all over again. But one of the things I've learned over the years is all the things that you need to do to put an idea in place. Take it from your head to give it to to a consumer or a user at the end. It could be a commercial idea, it could be a social idea, it doesn't matter. There are a whole lot of steps you've got to take. And for the last 10 or 12 years, I've been working with the Ice House, and I've developed what I called initially a 12-step process, like a staircase, but like Alcoholics Anonymous, then there are subsets under each of those things. So it starts off, you've got an idea, right? Now you've got to say, is that idea big enough to form a company around, or is it just a product? And if it is either a company or a product, you've got to do some research. Like start with Google, then do some desk research, then do some qualitative research. And so under each of these headings, there's a whole lot of subsets or subtexts. And so you start off with research, then you've got to do some financial planning. You've got to build build a budget. Then you've got to form a company. You've got to raise some capital. Then you've got some legal stuff. You've got to have a shareholders agreement. You've got company formation, premises leases, all the things you've got to do under legal. Then you've got to do a marketing strategy. Who's this going to appeal to? There might be a gap in the market. You've got to be damn sure there's a market in the gap. Because sometimes you think, well, it's a terrific little idea, but there's only 2 people in the world who actually want it. You're not going to be able to make yourself wealthy doing that. And then you've got to do some work out distribution. Who's going to manufacture this thing? Are you going to build a factory? You're going to get it outsourced. Who's going to sell it for you? What's your sales strategy? How is it going to be distributed? Is it going to be online, or is it through retail shops, or is it on a USB stick? Is it face-to-face selling? Then who's going to run the business? The people and culture is going to be very important. What's your code of contact? What's your what are you all about? Who are you going to attract? And finally, communication. How are you going to sell it? You're going to advertise it. It's going to be a web-based, it's going to be advertising-based, is it going to be PR-based, all those sort of things. So on the periodic table, there's 80 different elements that you've got to consider when you've got an idea in your head. Because if you leave it to serendipity, it may or may not happen. It's too hit and miss. And what we do through the university is find students who've got an idea, but they probably haven't been through the business school. They've got no idea how to start. And one of the things I've said to the university, look, you're teaching people in silos. You're teaching them to be an engineer, or an architect, or a teacher, or an accountant, whatever it is, or a chef. But they want to. So if it's a chef, they may want to start a restaurant. Where do they start? They need to have all these boxes to tick, or at least not to tick, but to consider. So I developed this. It becomes a periodic table. It's just a kind of a framework, a format to figure stuff out, and it works brilliantly. In fact, the last semester, one of the young girls she's just graduated, and this is for 3rd-year students or postgraduate students. This young girl, since she was 8 years old, had wanted to be a publisher and publish children's books. She's just passionate about publishing books. Going through this process taught her there isn't a business there. So she was able to validate her concept and realize it wasn't going to work. And so she was very grateful because we've saved her probably a couple $100,000 worth of wasted investment and 3 years of her time trying to prove something that was never going to fly. So and on the other hand, some of the students have had some brilliant ideas which they're now taking to market. One young guy has developed a 3D camera, which is now exhibiting at a exhibition in France. And it just some of them you'll find out quickly, because if you're going to fail, fail fast.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to watching from a distance that program and its outflow. As we come to a close, years ago, I forget for what reason I asked you. I think I was giving a presentation and I wanted a quote from you, and so I asked you who you thought was the most genial person you know, and to my delight, you replied that at the time it was a cross between Peter Ustinov and Santa. Have those views changed?
They probably haven't, actually. In fact, I was just listening to Peter Ustinov on YouTube last week, the Gibraltar Grand Prix. You might add perhaps Robin Williams or Bob Newhart in there, but by and large, no, I think that I still admire Peter Ustinov and still listen to him. And Santa, of course, is very topical right now, and you see him everywhere. And there's some, and it's you. I mean, you spread joy. A bit of ho ho ho, makes the world go round.
Thank you, Mike Hutcheson. Thank you so much. Awesome to have you on the program, and look forward to engaging further in the future. Bye for now.
Thanks, Pat. Bye now.